Chapter 88. Say Goodbye, Except in Your Nightmares. Summary. Their crime exam comes to an end, though the ones involved won't forget this experience for a long time. Ochako was a little confused when the sound of Izuku's singing filtered faintly through the ceiling above, but when the screaming started, she got the idea. While she would have loved to join in, she had a job to do, and she was almost at her destination. It was a good thing Mina and Katsuki had gotten the location, because the door she and Kole arrived at looked nearly identical to the dozens they'd passed along the way. It was only upon closer inspection that she could see strong, dark metal framing the door and the sturdier-looking security badge. Not that it mattered, as with a quick swipe of a stolen high-clearance ID badge, they were in. Unlike Ochako was expecting, the door did not open into a room, but another wing of the ship. Even standing at the precipice, she could feel the dour air of what lay beyond. A prison block. Her chest constricts as she moves forwards. The sound of her footsteps don't echo through the halls like before, held captive by the smaller space beyond. Logically, she knows the lights aren't brighter, but they seem to bear down on her without respite. A small shudder overtakes her, but Ochako knows she needs to keep her focus here and now. The past can't hurt her, but the present can. She needs her wits about her to save the princess. It takes everything in her to keep the yelp inside her as a hand rests warmly on her shoulder, though she can't suppress her flinch. Kole just smiles at her, maroon lips upturned in an understanding comfort, and retracts her hand, stepping ahead of her. Some of the tension drains from her muscles as she lets her temporary mentor take the lead. It's nice to have someone here to lead the way when things are too much. Someone who isn't her similarly traumatized space family, that is. The pair shuffle along as quiet as they can, creeping closer to what appears to be some sort of guard room, separating the hall from the rest of the wing. Kole's fluffy gold hair seems to dim as they sneak closer, melting into the background. They can't yet see anyone up ahead, but given the alarm that blared through the ship earlier, whoever was guarding the princess knew something was wrong. Ochako's guess was that the guards were waiting either side of the wall to ambush them when they walked through. Their best bet was probably to draw them out with some sort of distraction. Kole's brows are furrowed in thought, and after a minute, she still doesn't seem to have a plan. But Ochako did. She fished a roll of bandage out from her thigh bag and let all 5 fingers land on it. The fabric slowly unfurled as it floated through the air like a racer dad's capture scarf. Ochako nudged the tangled mass forward, slow enough that if Kole disagreed with her action, she could snatch it from the air before it made its way out in the open. But the woman didn't, so the twisting fabric continued on towards the mouth of the hallway. As soon as it crossed the threshold, a mass of amaranth scales lashed out with wicked claws, followed by a yellow form jumping in front of the passage to face their attacker. Kole didn't waste a moment, lashing out with a short sword-like weapon, just about piercing the sentient's protective scales. Ochako was close behind, her staff extending in the blink of an eye and coming down hard on the yellow dragon's head. Just as her opponent fell to the ground, she heard the now familiar sound of hilt meeting head, and the other went down as well. While Kole cuffs the unconscious yellow dragon and dazed Amaranth, Ochako stole out of the room and into the short hallway on the left. 2 doors sat offset from each other on opposite walls, each with a little window of bars near the top, too high for Ochako to see into. Without a second thought, she touched all 10 fingers together and floated up to the apertures. A shock of pink peach against metal walls had her reaching for the door on the right, slipping her hands around the bars to hold her in place. She ignored the racing of her heart at the familiar sensation. "Hello?" Ochako says softly into the cell. A head of blonde curls lifts up, the 3 eyes of the pink-skinned princess looking into hers. "Princess..." Ochako racks her brain for the girl's name. "Equin. Me and my crew are here to rescue you and return you to your home. Don't worry, I'll protect you." The princess, looking up at her with wide eyes, blushed. Izuku was surprised with how many people you could fit into a storage closet. Within a few minutes of their attack, everyone in the crowd was either paralyzed, unconscious, or trembling in fear, which Izuku tried not to feel bad about. But without enough cuffs to restrain them, they needed another way. Closets were apparently Moyue's favorite solution, and Izuku couldn't deny their effectiveness. After Mei remotely locked the doors, all the criminals could do was sit there and think about their poor life decisions. And with Ochako's radio that she'd secured the princess, they had done it. Sure, there were some stragglers around the ship, but they'd connected Mei and Sunyu to the main control panel. The two shut down everything but the ship's primary systems, like O2 and gravity, bringing the ship under their control, and leaving the prior inhabitants little in the way of recourse. Whoever wasn't in the hallways was locked in a room and out of the way. They'd really done it. They'd taken over a ship and rescued its prisoner. Time for the final lap, Moyue informs Izuku with a smile. We'll secure anyone in the halls, then Kole and Ochako can escort the princess out. Once we're on our way off, we'll tip the local alliance forces to come pick this group up. There's no doubt you 6 passed. You did a really good job, kid. Izuku can't help the blush that creeps on his cheeks. I wasn't anything special. You did most of the work. You were fucking terrifying. I had my doubts while you 6 were staying at home base. Like, when you got stuck on the ceiling after Denki startled you. The floating was more silly than scary. But that? I can see why you've already got stories told about you. It was impossible not to bury his face in his hands at that. He really had to stop getting stuck on the ceiling. The brown and blue woman brought a hand up to her comms, looking away from Izuku with an amused smile. Control room secured. Ship should be ready to board. Swackle's voice came through next. Us 4 will meet up with you 2 and start the sweep. Be there in 5. Moyue nodded as she switched off her microphone. This is always my least favorite part. Mainly, retrieving all the pairs of mag cuffs we used. The love for locking people in closets was making more sense now. Katsuki nearly stumbled into Deku, who was picking up an unconscious dragon, as Swackle gave him another pat on the back. You guys are great at this! Gods, would he fucking quit it? Despite being built like a truck, the guy didn't seem to realize his own strength. Deku gave a nervous chuckle. We're just students. Our teachers are a lot better than us. Trying to dissuade the continued praise. I find that hard to believe, Nuela said with a flat voice. It's true, though. Mina joined from where she guarded the door to their latest closet prison. We're not even done with our first year of school, while our teachers are pros with decades of experience. They could take any of us down in a heartbeat if they really tried. She gave a warning glare at one of the dragons eyeing the exit. Well, except Deku. He could fight God and win. If you're not the strongest, who's the most powerful on your planet? Moyue asked in what was probably supposed to be an even voice. Katsuki couldn't help but smirk at the slight fear in her voice. Deku taps his chin in thought after laying down the unconscious dragon. Well, the #1 hero in Japan is Totoro, our friend's dad. He's a flaming pile of garbage, but he's definitely strong. Katsuki scoffs. He's nothing compared to our last #1 hero. All Might could change the weather with just a punch. The looks of horror on not only the dragon extras' faces, but the pirates, are hilarious. And the nerd is his successor. The conscious dragons' heads whip up to stare at Deku with the same horror. All Might is so cool, Deku gushes. Mina hums. Now that he's retired, isn't All For One the most powerful now? Deku groans, while Katsuki settles for scowling. Fucking uncle. You're right. Father has been stealing quirks for generations, and despite being potatoified by All Might, he's still got hundreds of powers and an army of multi-quirked Nomu. Izuku acquiesced. If the aliens were horrified before, they were practically shitting themselves in terror now. A look that only intensified when Katsuki couldn't stop from laughing at their reactions. Unbeknownst to the teens, it was then the legend of All for One, the Soul Stealer, was born.